In 3, 2, 1, you are listening to the Real Spicy Podcast. My name is Pedro, and oh my God, I have not done this in a very long time. I think, if I'm not mistaken, the last episode that I uploaded was the Halloween episode where I wore a luchador mask. Before I go on with this episode we're talking about, the luchador mask, I kind of promoted that a little bit more. I tagged the wrestler, which is Pentagon Jr. Right now he's signed with AEW. I tagged him. I even tried to mimic his accent, and I did his mannerisms, and I did his signature phrase and quote, and I tagged him. I was like, maybe he'll watch it, and he ended up watching it. He commented on it, and I'm like, yo, I finally got this guy to comment on something. And it's not the first time he's commented. I was like, but when I first would tag him on things, I knew he would always get back to me, just because at that time he was a smaller, more independent wrestler. But now he's on a huge company called All Elite Wrestling on TNT every Wednesday night. And I'm like, yeah, this guy now is at the level that I thought he would one day be. He's not going to get back to me. Nope. He got back to me, commented to me in Spanish, and I was ecstatic about that. But enough about wrestling, because I can go on and on and on about wrestling. But this week, almost 2 months later, I would say 8 months in the making, we were supposed to meet back in June, and that fell through. I ended up leaving the country, and I'm like, we'll get back to it. And now, I would say 8 months later, we finally got in the studio live in person. Good friend of mine. I met this guy in college. I got Isaiah Torres. What's up, bro?
I'm excited, man. What's going on? I know. I actually forgot that we talked about this back in June. We talked about this back in June. Yeah, I'm excited to be here. I'm glad we finally put this into fruition and made it work.
Absolutely. I remember the date. I think, if I'm not mistaken, it was the week of the 17th of June.
But to be fair, though, I was in and out of the area too, though.
Oh, okay.
So we both were traveling around.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. During the pandemic, we were definitely traveling. But I know you were
safely traveling.
Yes.
If that's the thing.
So I know that you were going back home. LA area.
I went back to well, my parents live in a city called Montclair, which is, give or take on traffic, because everyone knows Southern California traffic is really bad.
Yeah.
Give or take, it's like 30 minutes from the LA area.
Okay.
If you look at it, LA County is huge. Stretches, LA, like all that.
It's a huge metropolitan area.
All the way to Pomona.
Okay.
The very next city after Pomona is Montclair.
Oh.
So Montclair starts San Bernardino County.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I live right on the border, right like the beginning of San Bernardino County.
Yeah.
But my grandparents, where my parents grew up, where I lived when I was a kid, is El Monte.
Yeah.
That's LA County. That's closer to the LA area.
Yeah.
It's next to Pasadena and Arcadia.
Yeah.
Cities in that area, Rosemead, stuff like that.
Okay.
So, but yes, that's where I grew up from, and I lived there up until 5 years ago. I moved here in 2015 to go to UNLV.
It's been a while since I've been
here in the studio.
And here in the studio, on the mic, behind a screen for the most part.
It's a little tough when it's been a little while.
Yeah, when it comes to being on the mic, and I don't know if you can agree or disagree. When you talk, you just normally talk, but when you're behind a mic, that's when you hear
everything. You hear
the heavy breathing, and then you got to control your breathing to the point where, like, I'm so used to using my body and emphasizing certain statements and words that I'm like, holy shit, I'm out of breath. Even if it's a podcast, even if you're just talking, it's kind of like a musician where you have to control your breathing. You have to control your diaphragm. And that's where I'm at right now. I'm like, okay, tone it down, keep it easy, take a deep breath. You can use your arms and everything, but you got to make sure to breathe from your diaphragm, not from your lungs, because that's when you get the and then you're like, you catch your breaths. Yeah. So I got to make sure. And then hopefully those that are listening, because I know you can hear it because I see the spikes in audio go up and down. I got a little bitch ass dog who I'm trying to train to stop barking. You know, we got this dog from a broken home, I would say 2.5 years ago. And I normally would just let him go. I was like, no, you know, he'll eventually get used to it. No, it's been 2.5 years. I'm like, okay, now this is really bad behavior. We have guests in the house. Like, he barks. He's not aggressive. Like, he came up to you, sniffed you, and he's like, all right, cool. He just likes to bark. Did a lot of research, talked to a couple vets, and he's like, yo, homie, your dog has anxiety, and you need to, he's so used to you, so you need to include him in things. Don't put your dog away. Introduce him, and don't yell at him. And I think that's such a like Hispanic thing, like old school. Like, your dog does something, you're like, shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
And then the dog like just gets even more anxious about it. So now I'm like, good boy, calm down. I introduce him, you know, go for a walk. So here and there he does bark. So preluding to everything, my apologies if you hear a bitch ass dog bark in the background. But dude, since October Halloween episode, I have not been on the podcast. I don't know if you've kind of experienced this, but for me is I work from home. I'm very blessed that I still have the ability to work, but now it's from home. When I used to go to work, and I feel like I've told this story 3 times already. When I go to work, the first thing that I look forward to is leaving work to go back home. Because at home I have toys to play with, like the mics, the computers, the audio, just so I can become and own my skills a little bit more. Now that I'm at home, I'm in this seat 8 to 5. And then from 8 to 5, I no longer want to be in this seat, which means that I no longer want to play with the equipment that I have. Now the one thing that I want to do is leave my house. So I normally just go to the park and I play tennis. I'm losing that focus that I once had being in here.
The problem is now your workplace is inside your home where you want to relax. And a lot of people have that problem right now. I mean, you know, my mom told me, and I feel bad because she's been working at Bank of America since I was born, even before, maybe 95 or 97 she started. And you know, she worked her way up from the ground floor, teller, all that. And now for years now, she's been working on the second story, like being an admin upstairs. So she's not even the bank level anymore. And when the virus hit, she had to start working from home. And they told her initially that, I think that everyone was trying to be optimistic when this all started, that she was going to be only working from home until, I want to say, August. And then they told her now it's going to be January. And here, that's where we're at now. We're in January. And she was, a few months ago, she's like, she was telling me that she's kind of irritated because exactly what you said. She goes to work, and all that stress and everything that everybody does not like about work, it's at work.
It stays at work.
And when you leave and you come home, all that is left at work, and you are now in your home where you could do whatever, you know, whatever entertains you, whatever, you know, relaxes you. But when you bring that work environment into the home, it is harder to escape it. And and I feel for it. You know, my other, you know, our good friend V kind of told me the same thing a little bit. You know, he's working from home too. And it's kind of frustrating. And so trust me, I mean, you are definitely not the only one that deals with that. And then when you're doing something like this, kind of where you talked about with the breathing and everything, it all builds up, you know. And then some, like what we're doing right now, you haven't done it in a while. You got to get back to used to what you're doing. And then you don't want to get too overexcited, the breathing techniques, and that's why they teach that. And with me, I know that I try to be calm when I do this for that reason, the breathing. But then my issue is I sometimes become too calm where I'm more laid back. I mumble a little bit. I'm slurring. And then I have to remind myself, like, come on, speak more clear. So it's a struggle. I totally understand what you mean from the working aspect, not from personal experience, but from family and friends. But then on the mic, and another variable that I never really had to deal with was when there's a camera involved too.
Yep.
Because when I'm in the studio, or when I was in the studio doing things for the radio station, I sometimes honestly close my eyes. Like if I had to read a script, then I have to read the script.
Yeah.
But I'm zoned in. I'm reading the script until I get it right. But sometimes if I don't need to read a script, if I'm just trying to do something that I've done many times, maybe sometimes even close your eyes might help. I don't know. That's why people like a certain ambience in their studios.
Yep.
But no, when there's a camera involved, it's kind of. I mean, if you really don't care, you can close your eyes still, but it's now people could see what you're doing as well. So all that builds up into it. And I totally understand what you mean.
Oh, dude, talking about what people can see. So, luckily I have like an amazing support system where people actually watch and listen, like very close friends. And a buddy of mine, he said, "Hey, Gil, I watched a couple of your episodes." I said, "Oh, you watched them?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "You fidget around a lot." I said, "No, I don't." So I went and watched a couple of episodes. You see me playing around with the screen. You see me looking at my phone. You see me fidgeting with the audio. And then he's like, out of nowhere, you just start looking around at like the ceiling while the guy is literally talking to you.
On one hand, I see the problem. On the other hand, I understand that there's not really an issue too much there, because right now we're starting this out, right? You're starting this out. You are playing host and producer. Yeah. And that's why you need to focus on the cameras, the audio. Yeah. You need to play with the mixer. Yeah. And that over time, as people become more advanced and a bigger platform, that's when they can start hiring people to focus. So all you need to do now is just focus on the dialogue. Yeah. As far as the other thing where you might be staring off into I do that too. Yeah. But the thing with me is I tend to do that when I really want to focus on what the person's saying. Oh yeah. And I feel bad sometimes because people will look at me like, "Why is he looking past me?" But I'm really just trying to focus on like that white wall. Yeah. And where I'm not looking at anything else, so I can really hear the person. I tend to do that a lot when I'm in loud areas and I can't hear what people are saying because I already have bad enough hearing. Yeah. If someone's talking to me and I really can't hear, I stare like downwards at the floor or something to make sure all the attention's on hearing what they say.
Sometimes you're just
and they look at me like you're not even looking at me when I'm talking to you, but it's just it's complicated.
Is it that you're positioning your ear?
Yes, I'm positioning my ear, but I'm also staring at something that won't distract me. Okay. Yeah. But but honestly, the fidgeting around, you're playing multiple positions in this production. So
Oh, thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Yeah. So you and I did we talk about the radio station, which was at UNLV. Yes. Do you still remember the call?
Station identification.
I still remember because when I did it, I was just chilling with everything. But the one thing that I took super serious was that
part.
Yeah, was that part because I memorized it. Thank you everyone for listening. My name is Gil Pedro. You are listening to 91.5 KUNV HD2, the radio station of UNLV. Or that's how I would say the identification.
There was a whole sentence. I remember that. There was a whole sentence, but as I got more comfortable with it, and I realized I only needed to say that within these like 5 to 10 minutes at the top of the hour. And also speaking to, a guy we both know, Dave Norse. Yeah. Like good mentor for me. Yes. And so shout out to him. But he told me that I don't need to say the whole sentence. I just need to hit the station.
Yep.
And the city. I believe it was a city too, or I think it was say KUNV 91.5, and then I think you had to say, maybe that was more with television actually. The city part.
Yeah, maybe.
But I wanted to hit the main parts.
Because I remember the lettering, the number, and I think that was it that we had to focus.
Maybe it wasn't city. Maybe city is just television.
Yeah. And then that was it. And then he did say change it up, but I kept reading it so much that I memorized it. So I would say you're listening to KUNV 91.5, the radio station of the UNLV Rebels, or I would something with UNLV, but to the point where it became a habit.
I did say UNLV a little bit too, just to give a recognition of where we were recording from. Yeah.
Yeah. So because of that little 1 year thing that I had, and everything was like volunteer. Some people actually got paid.
Yeah, they were on the main stations. So,
yeah. And it wasn't like big bucks. It was a few dollars. It was really cool though. The fact that you can put that on your resume, but having like a 16 channel mixer, having like professional equipment, like the mics, the SMB 40s or whatever they are, those cost like $400 a pop. Like getting to hang out with that in the studio, everything being soundproof from the outside in and vice versa. I loved it. And because of that, I was like, oh, maybe one day I'll have a podcast. And that, I think it was Norris who I always had in the back of my mind, because he was really positive about everything. He's like, good job, make sure you do this. And then he had people train me multiple times, because I took a 6-month hiatus. And I came back. He's like, you can get back on the air. You just need to train one more time with this person. Oh, okay, cool. I showed up, and then the guy said, so they told me you have to train with me. Yeah. Do you know how to use a mixer? Yeah, show me. I pushed a couple buttons and I was like, the song goes here, the song goes there. If you want to fade, you do this. If you want it to stop, you do this. He's like, dude, you can leave. Sweet. And I just left, dude. I was there less than 15. I'm like, this is awesome. But it's pretty simple. Like, once you're in there, what was like the best thing that you learned from that?
From the whole experience?
Yeah. Like having your own radio station, regardless of how long and how intensive it was.
I think the most fun I had had to be two different ones. It was, on one hand, it was sports, because I did a show where I wanted to showcase sports. Yeah. And on the other hand, I wanted to showcase music. Well, my favorite genre and what I grew up with was just, rap, hip hop, R&B music. Yeah. So I wanted to showcase those two. With sports, the most fun I had was definitely when we covered March Madness, which is college basketball. Yep. We were making our picks. We were doing our brackets. Yeah. We were talking about, in my opinion, March Madness starts during the conference tournaments, because those are the tournaments where, you have the big matchups like every year. Recently you have like Duke, Carolina for AC's championship. Pac-12, you might have Oregon versus Arizona, UCLA, USC maybe. Stuff like that. And then you have those mid-majors where that's their one ticket into the big dance. Yeah. They win that tournament, and then usually there's like one of those schools that make a good run and surprise everybody. Yeah. So that was fun. For like a good 3 weeks, month, we were talking about March Madness, the upsets. And that was a year that had really big upsets too. It was the first time where a number 1 seed lost to the lowest 16 seed. And that was Virginia. They lost to UMBC, which is University of Maryland, and then I forgot what BC stands for. But no one knew who they were until that moment. So it was fun, a lot of fun. Every week, I had me and a few friends, and we just talk about who's the best player, who we think might win this game. And then on the music side, the most fun I had was when I would have, we have a few friends who actually made music themselves. Yeah. And so I would have them on, and, we could talk about the song, what they like, what inspired them to do this song, stuff like that. And I gave them a platform where they could showcase like 3 of their best songs, best new songs that they wanted to play. And then on the same time, you have the mainstream popular people. They release new music. I wanted to showcase their new music too. I wanted to and the thing I enjoyed about having my own show is I could play the songs that are called deep cuts, the ones that are not on the radio, so people could just check those out. Yep. And it was a good feeling. You can ask anyone who's into music, a proud feeling is when you put somebody on to something that they like, and they're like, "Oh man, I like what you played. Who is this?" Like, that's just like a feeling when you put someone onto something. Yeah. I don't know why. It's just it's a little pride thing for some reason. Yeah. So I like doing that, putting people onto some new music, and also allowing my friends to, if they have good music that I actually enjoy, I want to let the world hear it too. Yeah. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's something I enjoyed having about my own radio show.
Dude,
it was fun. It was fun. But let's let your audience know the reason why I got into this was because of you.
Oh, dude.
Yeah, and that's
don't
the
make
truth.
me blush.
That's the truth, you know. You know, I was a freshman, and I did an article about someone, and it was you. I chose you because I mean, you're a local celebrity here in the city, right? You know, you're fluffy, you're the dancer, you're tiny,
yes.
You know, you've been on TV for a few minutes.
Yep, just a few minutes
with Gabriel Iglesias.
Yeah. I was there before I go on. I told a story that I was there for like 6 hours, and we did so many scenes, comedic scenes. And I was like, "Yo, this shit gonna be a banger!" Like, it was so funny. I got to hit him with the paddle. At the Heart Attack Grill, we got to do a scene where like I'm like, you know, like not an army, but like army movies. Like, you got one person with their hand over their shoulder and you're carrying them. Mm-hmm. So I was doing that with him because the storyline was that I hit him so hard he couldn't walk out of the building. And then I told everyone about what we did. And then when it showed, I'm like, that's literally 3 minutes.
You're really on screen for 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, we did 6 hours. I was there for 6 hours, and we did and it was really cool though, because even though it was reality TV, you still had kind of like a script. And they said, this is what you need to say. I was like, you have something in writing? No, just along the lines of this. And then I would say it. He's like, one more time, but like more excited. Okay. So the line was, I had to say, oh crap, I didn't know you got my tweet or something like that. And so I was like, Fluffy, you actually read my tweet. Cut. Tone it down.
Bring it down a little bit.
Hey, Fluffy, you saw my tweet. No, cut.
Bring it up.
Bring it up and louder, but less excited. Okay. Fluffy, you saw my tweet. Perfect. I was like, okay. And I would sit down. And it was one of those where like, reality TV isn't really what I thought. It's pretty scripted.
Yeah, cool. I mean, I think maybe as time went on, I think more people know that now.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was still I forgot what I was gonna say about that. But
something about the radio station and
no, I mean when you did that, I think that's what I was gonna say is I think maybe it might have been a platform it was on, because when that show that you were on, it was like a little 30-minute episode on Fuse.
Yep.
And maybe let's say, you know, Fuse TV, which is originally a music video channel, and then they try to break out a little bit, and now they're like, they don't show music videos at all no more.
Kind of like MTV.
It's kind of like MTV, yeah. And so maybe like let's say you were on a show that like Vice. Mm-hmm. You know how Vice they travel around. Those are still probably scripted too, but they travel around with like Action Bronson or 2 Chainz.
Yeah.
If like let's say you did that show 5 years later, and Gabriel had an hour-long show. I mean, obviously you probably would have had more time, but I feel like it was partly because of the 30-minute Fuse TV show, you know. But no, that was neat. That was pretty cool. And I mean, man, you were out there with Gabriel Iglesias, who was a world-known comedian. Yeah. And now he does more than just his stand-up. You know, he's been on a few movies. Yep. He had obviously he had a few TV shows. So yeah, I mean, he's the man, you know, and that was really neat. And I remember, so I chose, you know, I was able to, you know, you accepted to be my article topic, and you said, all right, is it cool if I meet you after I finish this radio show? Yeah. And I was like, oh, dope, radio. And then you're like, yeah, it's actually here on campus. I'm like, what? You're like, you want to come? And that's when you introduced me to the basement of Greenspun. Yep. The basement of UNLV. Yep. And at that time, it was my freshman year of college, and I had no idea, because they didn't, and that's when I started telling people, I had no idea that there was a radio station and a TV studio. Yep. On campus. In the basement. In the basement of UNLV. And so you put me onto that. Yeah. And then fast forward a little bit, I'm into it now. I'm doing it. And everybody asked me, you have a radio show? Where at? On campus in Greenspun. What? I didn't know that. I had a friend who used to give campus tours. Yeah. She didn't even know that. And that's when it hit me. I'm like, they need to do a better job of advertising this. Yeah. I mean, I came out here to UNLV on a whim and we could talk about that later if you want. But I mean, if I would have known that they had that, I mean, it easily would have increased my likability to the school a lot more.
Yeah.
But yeah, like people who gave out tours of the campus didn't even know that.
Yep.
And it was funny because I gave my friend a little tidbit that like she could tell people now too. You know what I mean? So yeah, that's how this journey all started for me. Was being in the studio watching you do your show.
Yeah.
And being intrigued.
Yeah.
You did your show, and then our other brother Mark Chisholm had a show.
Yep.
And then he introduced me to Dave, and the rest is history.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, what a small world when it comes to all that.
I think about that honestly, like here and there, I really do.
Yeah.
You know.
Have you ever had a hiccup where you had to use that emergency button where it erases because
yes
the radio station feed is what
8 seconds
8 seconds delay.
Yes.
So you can push it twice to the point where it'll delay 16.
Yeah.
Okay. You can push it twice and then it'll delay. So I had to push it once because I'll never forget. I'm playing, like I'm vibing, like it's 10 o'clock at night and I'm playing a song.
Yeah, you had a late night show.
I did.
You had a late night show.
So I was playing Panda by Designer and it says, I got bras in Atlanta, whatever it says. And then it says in there, bitch. Out of nowhere, and I'm vibing. What the? And I'm freaking out. I was like, push, and then I look, and then it's kind of like it charges up.
Yeah, it builds up.
It builds up, and then I said, like no one. It's not like a ton of people are listening, but it's one of those where, like,
you still don't want to mess up.
You don't want to mess up because it looks not only bad on you but on the school, and then the school gets in trouble with the FCC, and then we get in trouble, and then.
It's a domino effect.
Yep, the students will benefit from it. So I kind of freaked out. Nothing happened, and I reported that song. Every song that goes through is normally vetted, and it's normally edited.
Yeah.
Have you ever had any callers though?
I actually have.
Did you?
I actually had a few callers.
Oh dang! What'd you do with that?
Most of the time they called while I was talking on the air, so I couldn't answer the phone.
Yeah.
You know, because kind of goes back to what I said earlier. When you go up in life, you have people to do that for you.
Yep.
When I'm talking on the air, I can't just say, "Oh," I mean, you could, I guess, but you can't be like awkwardly, "Oh, I got a caller, let me," and then you're talking to him on the phone at the same time as the mic. So I didn't answer the phone, and the first time that happened, it was one of my former bosses. I used to work in the student union of UNLV.
Yeah.
And one of our managers was this guy named Joe Pugh. Yeah. And a great guy. He was awesome. Good boss. Really chill. Like work was done. But at the same time, he was awesome. Yeah. Laid back. You know, if he knew the ropes. You know what I mean?
He ended up moving to Texas, right?
He moved to Texas.
Yeah, you know why I know?
Because you know him too.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah.
Because he was in my graduate program for my master's degree.
I knew that you knew him too, or I had a feeling. I just wasn't for sure. But yeah.
Yeah,
so
dude, what a small world. I remember that last name because he was only there for 1 week and he's like, I'm moving to Texas. And we're like, this is the first week of classes. But hey, they were so open to the idea of him moving to Texas and finishing up his master's degree.
That's sweet.
That was pretty nice.
Yeah, I think he moved to work, if I'm not mistaken, Google.
I think so.
Yeah.
So and that master's degree helped in the end.
Yeah, man. I hope Joe's doing good. I haven't seen him or heard from him in a long time, but I hope he's doing good. Yeah, man. He called and then he messaged me. Hey, man, I called your show. How come you didn't answer? Or actually, I saw him the next day at work. How come you didn't answer? I was like, oh, that was you. I told him I couldn't do it because I was talking at the same time.
Yeah.
I said maybe try calling me next time when I'm playing a song. Yeah. I'm not talking on the mic. And then one other time, some random person. I think it was random. I mean, maybe it could have been a friend prank calling me. Yeah. But I couldn't recognize the voice at all. And he called me at a good time. Music was playing. And I answered it. And he's like, hey, man, I'm just calling you to say... He had a really deep voice. Yeah. I'm just calling you to say that I like what you're playing, man. Good shit. Good job, bro. I like it. And I was like, oh, for real? Oh, thank you. I appreciate it, man. Yeah. Like, yeah, I'm glad you like the music. Like, cool. He's like, yeah, man, keep it up. Good shit, man. And I was like, all right, well, thanks, man. Have a good night. He's like, yeah, I'm going to keep listening. And I was like, all right, cool. And then that was that. And that was like the only time I actually spoke to somebody who called. And like I said, who knows if it was real? Because who knows who's actually even listening? I was lucky enough to have a good support system where my family and then my brother would come home from school, and his friends who I knew because we were all in the basketball program, they would listen to me too. I had some cousins. I had some friends, even from UNLV. I had some friends who were like, I'm bored in class, I'm listening to it, or just like, I'm not doing anything, I'm listening to it.
Dude, that's the best thing about like friends who support friends in that realm.
As far as strangers go, I don't know who's actively saying, I'm going to listen to UNLV's campus secondary station.
Yeah.
So I don't know who I was talking to on the phone that night, but it was cool. So that was my only experience when someone called me. My first show was a train wreck.
Was it what you do?
A lot of ums.
Mine too.
A lot of dead silence.
Yep. This is what, and I hope, correct me if you remember, Dave
Norris.
He said the loudest noise is dead noise.
That's his tagline.
Oh, okay.
Every email Dave sends out, the signature. His signature is Dave Norris. President, vice president, whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then at the bottom, there's a quote. There's nothing louder than dead air, man. That's his signature. And I always remember that. Like,
Same.
I always remember that. It's quoted too. It's funny because every once in a while, someone told me that they listened to my first show. I think Dillman, our friend Nick Dillman, and two of his other friends who I met, Dallas, and I feel bad. I don't remember. I can't think of her name right now. But they said they listened to my first show, and I was like, "No, you didn't." I was like, "Oh, that was so bad." They're like, "Yeah, but it was your first show, so we understood." But I was like, "That show was rough, rough." I remember that, and to make matters worse, it was a Tuesday. My first year doing the show was a Tuesday, and it was at like 3 or 4 o'clock because that was when I could fit an hour in. For between classes and work, and I'm rushing over. I just got out of class. I came to my dorm room, tried to change, grab what I needed. Because my first show, I had all my notes from the FCC classes and stuff we had to learn. I took all that, went, and I actually showed up like 2 minutes late. And the guy who was before me, he was like, "Oh, so you're gonna do the show now? And man, you shouldn't be late." And I was like, "Yeah, I know. Like, well, like, let me start. You know what I mean? Kind of like, don't give me a lecture. You know what I mean?"
Yeah.
And so I came into that show late, and I felt rushed. I felt all the pressure, even though probably no one was listening. I felt all the pressure in the world, and it was such a train wreck. But I was glad that over time it got better.
Yep.
Everyone has to start from somewhere. But I always think back about that. It was tough. Like I never. How they say if you want to get better, listen to yourself, watch the game tape. I never listened to that because I knew it was bad.
Oh, no.
I knew it was
really?
bad. Yeah, I knew it was bad. But I'm glad, like I said, over time it got better. And it did. It really did. That first year, I went through it. It got better. And then the second year, I was lucky enough to move my show to 2 hours long. And that's when I put more time and effort into it. And that was a fun year. 2 hours long on a Monday. And that's where I knew that.
That's prime time right there.
And it was tough.
Yeah.
Every Monday, I was competing against Monday Night Raw and Monday Night Football.
Oh, yes.
I was on from, I want to say 5 to 7 or 6 to 8. I don't remember, one of those two. So I was like, no one's listening to this except for maybe my family and friends who want to hear this. And it was cool, though. I mean, they would text me while I'm on or snap me, whatever.
Yeah.
Say, "Hey, man, can you play this song for me?" And I'll look, see if I have it. Play something by this artist. Give me a shout out. And I would do it. And it was cool.
Yeah.
But no, that's when I put more effort into it. You said you don't want to edit the songs.
Yep.
And it's tiring.
Yeah.
But when I had my friends who made their own music send me stuff, either they would have edited versions for me, which made things easier, or I might have to edit. Who knows?
Yeah.
Most of the time, they gave me edited versions.
Good.
But when I had mainstream artists who released new music, I would grab them off YouTube, and then I would edit it myself. Or if I felt really, you know what? I would look for an edited version first. I would look for an edited version of the songs. Sometimes, whether it was an artist who wasn't as mainstream, but it was someone who I liked, because that was my thing. I liked a lot of guys who were signed to labels, but they weren't top 40. So they didn't have edited versions on YouTube. So I'd download it and then go into Adobe Audition and then do the edits.
Dude, yeah, it's time
and it took
consuming.
time.
Yep.
It took time. Sometimes I tried to pick songs that didn't have cussing every 5 words because there's no way you're going to get through that. Like, it's just too much. But yeah, I put a lot of effort into that, and that was fun. That was a good year run.
No, I mean that's a pretty good resource to use, and I think having that radio station background, regardless of size, it's a huge advantage over other people.
Now, what I really appreciated was the fact that not only doing on the mic stuff, but on the side of that, I was able to work production. So I did producing for live sports. So when we had guys who were commentating, broadcasting, students were broadcasting at the games, football or basketball.
Yeah.
And I did some of that too. I did some broadcasting myself.
Yeah.
And then I got promoted to be a producer. So then while they're out there, I'm in the studio just producing levels. Go to a break, play the underwritings, and then back and forth,
Yeah.
And then also I got the opportunity to go out with the commentators and set up the equipment. So I was never on the mic, but I was there next to him. And I get to go to a game for free still.
Oh, that's really cool. Yeah.
And I was getting paid. The commentators, they was volunteer.
Yeah.
But to be an in-house producer and to go with the guys and work the boards from the spot, those were paid positions.
Yeah.
So that was, like you said, it's really nice to have that experience. I have on air and producing experience. So it was fun. And if you enjoy like watching sports or listening to music, it all worked out. It was good stuff.
Yeah. Remembering you when I first met you, you were 1, very quiet. 2, we teased you because every photo you took looked like a mugshot. And then as time went on, you started being more open, more talkative, which is good. Which if you're going to be in sports, writing, sports, radio, anything that requires you to interview others, you kind of have to be talkative. So it's really good that you took the initiative and started dabbling with radio, because I think that's what kind of opened you a little bit more.
Opened doors like crazy.
Yeah.
And that's why a lot of things tie into it.
Yeah.
It really does. I mean, going to UNLV on a whim like that. And then initially I was thinking writing, but I knew that newspapers were kind of like going down because everything's going digital now.
Yep.
And also I got to credit that to being in Alpha Tau Omega. Because if I wasn't even in the fraternity, I would have never met you.
Yeah.
So it's just crazy how things lead to each other. Yeah. So
it's a trickle down effect. Oh, dang, bro. That's awesome.
I think, it's crazy, man. I really, because people ask me, how do you think life would have been if you didn't come out here to Vegas?
Yeah.
Which I think about sometimes.
Yeah.
Because family's a state away.
Yeah.
And you're not there for memories and you miss them, this and that. And then the other question I get is, how do you think your life would have been if you didn't do Greek life? And that one, I honestly cannot imagine or fathom how it would have been.
Yeah.
Because
it forces you to be more social.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It really does.
And we get it. You're paying for friendship, and there's that like stereotype bad side to it. And then there's the other one where we all know you get in what you put in.
Yeah.
So yeah, you, like you said, put yourself out there, and you got to learn that. And when you move across state, you're gonna have to put yourself out there and do this. So yeah, man, it's crazy. It's really wild.
Before I end, I want to end on something that I know you're very proud of, and it's the 2 LA teams that won this year, the Lakers and the Dodgers. Without going into too many specifics, let's start out with the Lakers. I know that this year was really tough, or the last year was very tough for Los Angeles, the basketball community, and the Lakers because of the loss of Kobe Bryant. Them winning, you being a diehard Laker fan since you were born, what did that mean to you?
For me, my first memory of basketball is Kobe and Shaq.
Yeah.
Like, that is my first memory ever.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, a few years after that, And that was in the heyday of their three-peat days. A few years after that, they had a fallout and Shaq left.
Yep.
Kobe's the one that stood, so Kobe's the one that everyone pretty much gravitated to.
Yeah.
And we got to see him become, like kind of change his persona a little bit.
Yeah.
And bring the Lakers back to the top.
Yeah.
And so the last time they had won was 2010.
Yeah.
And man, it was a tough decade.
Yeah.
After that, the Lakers still had some pretty good teams. 2011, they got swept by eventual champion Mavericks. 2012 was I'm trying to think. They lost to the OKC Thunder that had Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden. They went on to the finals and lost to LeBron James.
Yep.
So those two teams that they lost to were teams that eventually went to the finals.
Yeah.
2013 was a year where everything flipped.
Yeah.
They were supposed to be really good. They got Steve Nash. They got Dwight Howard. But the team could not make it work.
Yeah.
And in a last-ditch effort to bring the Lakers to the playoffs, and I feel bad because Dwight Howard got a bad rep, but he put up some monster numbers, but he just gave up on the team at the end.
Yeah.
But if you look back, the Lakers had the best record in the second half of the season. So they were kind of coming in hot, but they had a lot of ground to make up.
Yeah.
Kobe played big time minutes, like high 30s, like 40 minute games, and it was taking a toll on his body, but he was willing his way to the playoffs, which ended up in him tearing his Achilles, and that was the beginning of the end.
Oh, okay.
So he wills them to the playoffs, but they get swept by the Spurs.
Yeah.
And then after that, they never made the playoffs again, all up until this past year in 2020. Yeah. So it was a tough decade. Yeah. I mean, we saw the rise of. That was the beginning of the rise of LeBron starting to win some of his championships. Yeah. And then it became the rise of Golden State. And the funny thing about that is I have a love-hate thing with the Warriors. Yeah. And I used to like the Warriors when they weren't good. I have and I'm sure you don't know who this is, but I have a Monte Ellis Warriors jersey. Uh-huh. And like that was he was one of my favorite players. So I liked the Warriors back when they weren't really good. Yeah. And when they started being good, I was happy for them. But then it brought out this rivalry where I haven't discovered yet, where even though they're in California, and that's why I liked them because they were a California team, it brought out this Bay Area versus LA rivalry. Yep. And out of nowhere, all these guys are coming out of nowhere just talking trash about the Lakers now because it was their opportunity to. Yeah. And that's where I started to not like the Warriors. Oh, okay. So for them, and it sucks that injuries happen, right? Yeah. And it's unfortunate. Klay Thompson's one of my favorite players in the league, but for him to get injured, it was sucked. Yeah. But to see him lose, though, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty happy. Yeah. I was happy to see the Warriors suck last year. Last year, the Warriors sucked really bad, and teams were blowing them out by like 20, 30 points. So now they were becoming the punching bag. Yeah, yeah. And it was honestly, I laughed a lot. It was funny. And then the Lakers were good again, and then with the passing of Kobe, that was just tough because he was somebody who was a lot of people's childhood. Like he was mine for sure. Mine too. I mean, I remember like it was yesterday, like going and watching their games, as much as possible. Mm-hmm. And with Kobe, you knew that they had a chance to win. Like there was no doubt about it. He was putting up some crazy numbers in those like 2007, 2010 years. Mm-hmm. So when he finally retired, you knew basketball was never going to be the same. And that's how people felt when Jordan left too. Yeah. It was just a big chunk was missing from the game now. Yeah. And we were excited to see him become an old man along with the greats. Yep. And that's what everyone envisioned. And then he changed things. He changed it around. He's like, I'm not going to be like that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And, he won a few awards. And the greatest thing was seeing him become a coach. And on top of that was for his daughter and their team. And you could see kind of like they had high hopes and aspirations. He said from the jump it was going to be a 6-year program where they gradually get better, go into high school. And then those girls had hopes and dreams, man. They were going to be lifelong friends. And those are the grind days when you're just a kid having fun playing the game.
Yeah.
So it's sad to see not only that they passed away, but like potential.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's just tough. That's like having something just ripped away from you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, when they passed away, it was crazy because, and I said this when he died, it was like when he retired, the basketball, it was never the same. Now with him gone, the world will never be the same. Yeah. And it hit everywhere you flipped. ESPN, NBA, NFL Pro Bowl talking about Kobe, Super Bowl moment of silence for Kobe, CNN talking about Kobe. Like everywhere you went, it was, and that's when you knew.
He's transcended to other sports.
He touched every market.
Yeah.
He touched everything. And
also something that I can relate to before we end this with Kobe is he was able to transcend or cross barriers with the Latin community.
Yep.
I mean, yes, it helped that his wife was Latin and very pretty, so that was always easier. But the fact that he went out of his way to learn the language so he can communicate better with Latin media.
Yeah.
Yo, that's why he had a lot of love from the Latin community. So when he did pass away, mariachi were everywhere, like honoring him. And normally that's done to family members, that's done to big celebrities in the Latin community. So for him, someone who was, besides his wife, that connection, and to have that impact on different cultures. I can only say that for the Latin community. Maybe he was able to do that with like other communities as well. But I thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
When mariachis were outside singing, because that's not normal for a non-Latin person.
It's not normal. I would say it's definitely not normal when it's not just something that was in the basketball community. Like I said, you saw it everywhere. Political channels, like it was everywhere. You couldn't avoid it. So when you add a decade of losing, and then an unfortunate sudden passing like that, it spoke to to like the loyal fan base. Yeah. Okay, like we got to do it this year. Yep. And it was a lot of people have a love-hate relationship with LeBron because he was, for many years, he was the villain to Kobe. Yep. But now he was the one, and he said, like, I'm gonna do my best to take it from here. And there was something so symbolic about that because the night before he died, LeBron passed Kobe on the scoring charts. Oh, and it was a passing of the torch. Yeah. It's so weird that he passed him up, and the very next morning he died, and it felt like it was a legit, to me, like a legit passing of the torch. Yeah, you're gonna carry it here now. So, and it sucks because a part of me still doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel right. It doesn't feel real. Yeah. Because they won in a season that got stopped. They had to go play it in a not like in this bubble in Disney World, and we didn't get the parade that I was so desperately wanting. Yeah. Because that's just a proud feeling. The whole city, being there, one family. Yeah. But so it still doesn't feel right. Honestly, it really doesn't. It feels a little weird. And they're already playing again. It's just weird, but for them to win, it was such a feeling of like, I don't know, astonishment, I guess. Yeah. I mean, I didn't have nothing. I didn't do anything for the team. I didn't win the championship personally, but just a long decade of losing, and then dude, your hero, your childhood, just passing away. Yeah. On top of that, his 13-year-old daughter and other 13-year-olds and other people. But at the time, my sister was 13, and I'm like, man, you know what I mean? Like, it's such an innocent life. So absolutely, all that for them to win, like I even cried a little bit. That's just some thug tears. You know what I mean? But it was just it's a feeling that it's unexplainable. Honestly, it's just you're just proud. Good. You're just proud and you got to tell yourself that everything happens for a reason, and I guess it was just meant to be. Yeah. So that's what I would put on that. Awesome. I'm sorry I stretched that out a little bit. No, you're good. Believe it or not, that was only the short story of that. I really is. So.
No, you're good, bro.
That's how proud I am.
Absolutely. Yeah. Dude, that's awesome. Well, I think we're gonna leave on that very positive note. Well, semi-positive because it's very sad, but at the same time, you ended with a positive note. I want to thank you so much for taking the time spent with me on the podcast. It's been, like I said, almost 8 months in the making.
Yeah.
Super excited to be back at it again with the podcast. I love doing this. It's just one of those where one time, well, you make up excuses, and my one excuse, I don't have time. Bitch, I got time. It's just I don't want to be in this room, but it's a lot of fun when I have people in here. So thank you so much for making the experience that much better. And I can't wait for another episode, which we will have. Again, is there anything else? Well, we'll leave it for the other. Well, is there anything else that you want to end with?
That might tie with this. I wore this hat on purpose for a reason. It's the one with the World Series patch on it. So
okay.
So yeah, because we talked a lot about Lakers. 'Cause that's my favorite team of all sports. But in a weird way, the Dodgers did win too.
Yeah.
It's also one where I feel a little weird about it because it was a short season.
Yeah.
But you know what? They won after years of agony.
Yep.
I wanted to wear the hat for that reason too.
Hell yeah, bro.
But, that's it for me. That's it.
Cool. Well, first of all, lastly, thank you so much for being on the episode. For those, I forgot my end credits, but for those of you listening or watching, you can listen to us on Apple, Google, and Spotify. And to watch with your eyes what you heard with your ears, I still remember after 2 months, you can check us out on YouTube. Thank you so much for watching and listening. My name is Pedro, and on that, I am out.